Here we are with Ray, with Tom Thumb. He was famous. He was like known all across America. He was like your height. How does that make you feel?
It just really brings a smile to my face that dwarfs were able to get the attention and respect a few centuries ago. And today, they still do. They continue to inspire generation to generation with their bravery and confidence. The world is full of little people, much of it understood, much of it not. And I'm here to present the full picture. I'm Raymond Correa, and I'm always looking up because this is Life as a Little Person.
This is the show about you.
This is me.
I didn't let that stop me from who I was because I am who I am.
Life as a little person.
To this day, life as a little person is something of itself. There are many generations of dwarfs we could go back to, but one in particular has become a big example that still inspires little people to this day. And that is Charles Sherwood Strand, better known by his stage name, General Tom Thumb. He was probably one of the first major celebrity dwarfs of his time, and we have to thank P.T. Barnum for that. P.T. Barnum discovered General Tom Thumb at the age of 4 or 5. I guess Barnum was looking for acts that looked unique in terms of good entertainment.
In the 1850s, the population is like 50,000 people, so it's not inconceivable that their paths immediately crossed. He would appear at various events with Barnum. He would dress up in a little military uniform often. Went on tours all across Europe in front of Queen Victoria. He did all sorts of tricks and stunts and comedy routines. He was like an entertainer. People would come and ask him questions and talk to him, and then he got married.
As a matter of fact, he met Lavina Warren in the early 1860s. She was also a dwarf and a performer, and they married on February 10th, 1863 in New York City, and it became front page news in the New York Times.
He paved the way as a dignified person. It wasn't like just sort of like this Cupid doll, but an intellectual, had something to say, and it spoke for people and spoke for himself, and had a deep and long-term loving relationship with Barnum throughout his life, throughout their relationship together. So I think that is a lot that he would do for little people to show the dignity beyond who he was.
Every year, little people are born looking different than the average person. We face several challenges that requires us to make a few adjustments within our lives, but we always move forward. My fellow LPs are here to say.
I am Casey Hubblebank. I have cartilage hair hypoplasia, which is mostly an immune system disorder, but it also has skeletal dysplasia. And so people that have cartilage hair hypoplasia would have immune system deficiencies, usually in their blood, and have different problems growing up.
It's one of the rarer types of little people that are out there. I'm a teacher over at the driving school.
That started when I was in college to help me have some money, and turned into my second career.
My uncle worked for a driving school doing driving on the side and stuff like that. When I was at Southern, they had that program, where you could become a driving instructor, part of the teaching. So I took those classes, and I eventually worked in the program at Southern, at the university, and I worked there until the program closed. And I looked up driving schools in Yellow Pages, and I found this place, and I called and said, hey, I'm a driving instructor, and been working here ever since.
I do a number of things over at the driving school. I do a lot of the classroom work, and that's usually after kids get out of school. We have classes 6 to 8 p.m. and also I do the adult classes on the weekends. I also take kids out on the road, and usually on the weekends, and deal with managing 9 other instructors along the way.
If I'm going on a driving school car, I have to put the pedals on and off. When I'm at work, everybody knows who I am, including all the kids. But once in a while, we get a new kid coming in, and of course, if they're not as educated as most people, of course, you're going to hear like the M word or something like that. But the good part about being a teacher is you've already educated all your other kids on all that stuff, And so when a new kid comes in and says something, the other kids are going to educate them. And that's when I know I've done my job and I know I've made a difference on those other kids. When I have my students educating new students about me and little people and what's okay to say and what's not okay to say, people wonder, well, what am I supposed to do? What do I need? And sometimes it's as easy as some pedal extensions. Other times it's a lot more equipment.
What do you do in your spare time?
Oh, people have spare time? Well, I'm working 7 days a week, and so I'm rarely home, but when I am home, I spend most of my time lounging on the couch, spend time with my dogs and my cats, and maybe once or twice a week, Jennifer and I will go out. This is just your life. This is just the way things are.
My name is Jason Perez. My type of dwarfism is achondroplasia dwarfism. And what it is basically shortened limbs, so extremities are different, a larger head, but it's the most common type of dwarfism. I was born and raised in New York, and I've lived there all my life. I feel it was very important for my upbringing, because you see so many different types of people, but not only different types of people, different types of opinions, and it's pretty much accepting. I went to Queens College in Queens, New York, specifically Flushing, and I decided to double major in political science and media studies. To feel I have a bachelor's degree, it's very fulfilling. I made sure to take advantage of opportunities that came along. So I've been part of the Radio City Christmas Spectacular at Radio City Music Hall. And then when Little Women came along, I took that whole year off because of filming. It was a good experience. I went back to college because personally for me, a degree was important. And as many friends and family have told me, it doesn't hurt to have it under your belt. I just felt like almost an average person, you know. I didn't really take my dwarfism as something horrible or anything. I just took it as, okay, this is me. And that's, I think, in credit to my parents who brought me up like that, brought me up quote unquote normally. They didn't say you are different, you are this, you are that. They're like, okay, you're Jason. An average day I could be hanging out with my family. Family's very important to me. Friends, I have a really close-knit group of friends. Just living life one day at a time. You never know what tomorrow brings. So just try to enjoy the moment.
My name is Faith Peterson, and I have achondroplasia dwarfism. I grew up in a town of 2,500, so everybody knew everybody, which I think is really nice, just because, like, if you had a situation come up, then the whole town would be behind you and supporting you. I may have been excluded from some things, but I didn't let that stop me from who I was and who I was going to be as an individual. I didn't let that change me. If someone asked for me to change for them, I would deny it, and I wouldn't do it just because I am who I am. And if someone isn't willing to accept me for my size or for my personality, then it's just not meant to be. And that's just kind of sort of how I view things. In the end, a lot of people are different, and we're all unique in our own unique ways. And some people aren't used to change and other people are, and it just really depends on the individual. I try to ignore it, and if it becomes a problem and they, approach me and say, hey, why are you a little person? Then I tell them the honest truth. I'm just a person of uniqueness, and go about my day, and hopefully, I've taught that individual more about dwarfism or more about life in general.
My name is Mark Povinelli. I have spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, which in layman's terms basically means that I have a very short torso and longer arms and legs and a truncated neck, as you can see. My parents raised me to be proud of who I was and my difference, and to expect to achieve anything anybody else did. Like, my difference was actually made me more interesting than everybody else and cooler than everybody else, which may have been naive, but it was a really great way to grow up, because then every other person I encountered had to kind of question, like, oh, I was going to feel pity for him, but he's so confident, maybe I should want to be like him. Family is a big aspect of my life. Being president takes up a good chunk of my time. And then professionally, I'm an actor. I'm just kind of like a regular guy.
Living life as a little person becomes heroic and inspiring. Even with all the challenges and adjustments that average height people usually don't face, it never stops them from maintaining the life that they always want. Now that sets a good example for our society.
The only difficulty that I would say is trying to adapt to the average size world, trying to find modifications in doing everyday tasks or living an everyday life. I feel like it's easy if you're willing to get out of your comfort zone. It's easier for me just because I know a lot of people here. But for people elsewhere, it just really depends on their situation and where they live and whether or not they're willing to advocate for themselves. I feel like it's easy to find a way to accommodate and become accessible to such things that we need on a daily basis.
If I'm in the classroom, I don't really need too many modifications there. I have a projector and a screen and everything. For my floor, I use, where I'm working in the office or teaching, I have a milk crate underneath my feet, which makes it a lot more comfortable.
Sometimes it's obviously hard to reach stuff. I have to ask for assistance a lot. I have bowed legs, so it's hard walking long distances sometimes. You know, an average person, to keep up with them, I have to take more steps to their one step. But, you know, as you grow older, you get used to it. And then, you know, if you have the right support system, you just don't think of it too much.
You know, it's not always easy to avoid these actions, but we just brush them off like dust and move on. It's very rare to see more than one little person living in the same city, let alone the same state. In fact, the population of little people is so scattered that many of us think that we're the only ones out there. But luckily, every year we have the opportunity to get together and attend the national conferences for the little people of America.
When you're sick of me, to give love and take it away. And you'll add my name to the long list of traitors who
I like to describe it as a high school reunion meets a wedding, meets a medical seminar, meets a cruise ship. It's so much packed into a week, but basically it's a chance for little people to get together and share a common bond and socialize, at the same time having medical workshops, access to some of the best doctors in the world, having a chance to perform on stage or to run down a fashion runway with their peers, and having a chance to celebrate their uniqueness and their diversity and their commonality with people that have a shared experience.
It's a great thing for little people. I felt like I was living in my own little bubble, thinking I'm just the only little person, but no, there's a lot of little people, young, old, different types of dwarfism. So it's very insightful, and I realize you're not in this world alone.
do you need a bigger body?
No, my step stool works out just fine.
It's just crazy looking back, just seeing all the memories and experiencing them once again, you know, just going back and reminiscing over and over again all the years past of conferences that I've attended. And the way that I felt afterwards, I felt like I was home.
She's hardworking and always goes above and beyond for both strangers and friends.
We heard about the national convention, which was in 1983 in Boston, and we went to that. And there I met hundreds of little people.
Also, there was a camera crew following me around. They were doing some kind of special. So it was one of the first times where little people were on the news. And of course, it was me at 6 years old.
We close with a short story from Steve Young in Boston.
Like all kids, Casey Hubblebank has lots of dreams about what he wants to be when he grows up. He can be pretty nearly anything except tall. Casey is a dwarf. It was a shock to his parents, Ron and Jan Hubblebank. There was no history of dwarfism on either side of the family.
We, not being familiar with brand new babies, didn't realize anything as they were taking him to clean him up. And then I went to take a look at him. And as I went to peer in at him, the doctor said, "So, how come your baby's a dwarf?"
I kept thinking maybe it was something that I did during the pregnancy. And I did, have guilt feelings, and I kept thinking maybe it was me.
Most dwarfs are born to normal parents. About 1 in 20,000 people are like Casey. Though he's nearly 7, Casey is shorter than his friend Taylor, who's 4. But he and his playmates have adjusted just fine.
Bye, Tom. I'll see you next week.
So Casey could meet more kids like himself. His parents took him to a Little People of America convention in Boston, the first they've attended.
It's a strange feeling to all of a sudden walk into a room and be the same height as everybody else.
A meeting of first-timers, a chance for Ron and Jan Hubblebank to talk with other parents in the same situation, and for Casey to start making friends.
He started thinking a little bit more that it's not a handicap that he has, but he's a little bit different. And being a little different, you have to make certain adjustments in life.
There are nearly 100 different forms of dwarfism. During the convention, Casey's parents learned he has the same kind as actor Billy Barty.
You mean you don't write it down or anything?
Founder of Little People of America.
He took the cause of Little People and made it what it is today. He is the guy who decided that, we needed to all come together and form a bond so that we had power and strength and support.
What a great role model.
We think we just have a physical limitation. Like we say in our organization, the only space barrier you have to conquer is the one between your ears.
Everybody smile! Casey is the only little person in his hometown, but at the convention he could truly see he is not alone. By the end, Casey was performing in a talent show, front and center, feeling pretty tall. Steve Young, CBS News, Boston.
We should all stand so tall.
The more publicity that LPA gets, or the more people it reaches out to, it can definitely make a positive impact.
And you just get yourself involved, and you become, by hanging out with other role models, you end up becoming one.
As the years go by, many little people have avoided the stereotypes and found their own paths. With television, film, and much more, they were able to work hard and make a name for themselves. And with that, we were able to have all these stars in their own right. You have Vern Troyer from Austin Powers as Mini-Me.
He is exactly like you in every way. Except 1/8 your size.
Breathtaking. I shall call him Mini-Me.
Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones.
And I admire him for the sake of opening that door and making a distinguished role his own and creating a name for himself, and not just a typical elf or what have you.
Call me elf one more time.
You got the guy, Tattoo from Fantasy Island. And he was a Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh, yeah,
Herb Velechez.
Yeah.
He was great. He was a bad guy. He was excellent.
I just dreamed of being those people I would see.
When I was 29, I told myself, the next acting job I get, no matter what it pays, I will, from now on, for better or worse, be a working actor.
One thing led to another, one interview led to another. I met the girls, they started filming, and then that's what you see on TV. And it's just basically like our daily life, trials and tribulations, some conflicts between us, but also how we overcome certain challenges. So I think it's insightful for people who watch it.
Jason is my Filipino sidekick. He's fabulous.
I'm Jason, and you gotta know who I am. They can see it as the reality aspect and the drama filled, but you also see it as like we're little people living life. We're not just defined by our dwarfism.
Don't bother telling the world you are ready. Show it. Do it. Trust me. A rhythm sets in.
Whatever you may think, it's still an opportunity for the world to see little people more, because people aren't exposed enough to little people. So that's what I took the reality show, and that's why I did Little Women, because I was like, it's an opportunity for people to see us living life. Whatever it may be, whether it's a good opportunity, bad opportunity, we're living life just like a regular person.
Hey! Oh my gosh, your elevator's not even working. I love a great cocktail party and seeing my girls, but trekking up 6 flights of stairs? Hell to the no.
We just lived life and saw how our interactions is what you see on TV. And yeah, it was just normally what we do, you know?
Oh, that's safe.
Hi, babe.
I am so out of shape. I just did.
Oh my God, let's not.
My dream was to become an entertainer and to be distinguished and respected.
What did Beckett say? Ever tried, ever failed. No matter. Try again. Fail again. Fail better. The world is yours. Treat everyone kindly and light up the night.
Increasing our awareness has brought more attention to the public's perspective. To this day, we worked hard to show our true selves and how the good outweighs the bad.
I think that you have to be yourself, and you have to find out what that is. And you can't change who you are to fit in with everybody else. You're going to have to definitely adapt to the world for sure, and but you don't want to change who you are to be able to do that.
I think I would just say to myself, no, do whatever you want to do, Jason. Like, the world is your oyster. You can do it, so don't keep putting barriers in front of yourself.
I think we're doing an excellent job in educating the public so far on what dwarfism is and the different varieties of dwarfism. It's just more so changing the view of little people by changing the use of the M word. So if we remove it from our vocabulary, I think that little people in general will have a good standing.
I think in today's standards, we have a much more respected place in society than we have in previous generations. And I do feel like our community, partly because of Little People of America, has a sense of pride that is stronger than it's ever been, and a sense of belonging and a right. Like, we have a right to be here and a right to achieve whatever we want to, and we're less willing to accept discrimination and our place and being made fun of and being the spectacle of the joke. But things are improving, they're steadily improving, and I'm really impressed. Would I change being a little person? And that's easy for me, it's no. This is the life I've forged, I'm really proud of it. I wouldn't change a thing about my physicality. If I could change anything, it'd probably be changing the lineup of my fantasy football team last week. I have no major regrets about my life.
You see, we have our ups and downs, but in the end, we accept ourselves for who we are. You know, Peter Dinklage once said, "Never forget what you are. Wear like armor, and it will never be used to hurt you, and it will certainly continue on." I'm Raymond Correa, living life as a little person. We should always be looking up.